Welcome to SAP TV News. I am Larry Larrock, your presenter. In our top stories, former President Vernon Shaw dies. Trinidad schoolgirl sexually assaulted before death. Fast and Furious actor Paul Walker mourned. And in sports, Dominican national team secure victory at friendly matches against St. Lucia. Details of these will follow. Welcome back. Dominicans are being urged to ensure they do regular health checks as this will mitigate their chances of illness. This was the advice of Ms. Christiana Francis, Healthcare Coordinator of the American Medical Students Association, AMSA, when they hosted a health fair at the All Saints University School of Medicine. The public received free blood and glucose checks, as well as engage in sexual education and fitness discussions.
This event is important because we try to promote a much more healthier lifestyle to persons to ensure them that their stats for health are really important and that there is a growing tendency of hypertension as well as diabetes. So we try to get them involved in checking their blood pressure and blood glucose on a daily basis to know their range as to what they should cut down on, what they should improve, as well as the body mass index to know their height and their weight, whether they're overweight, whether they're underweight, or anything that they may need to work on.
She said, when they host such events, the public turnout is always very impressive. According to Ms. Francis, the public is always appreciative of these health fairs, as many do not have the money to conduct such health checkups.
To always be in good health, you always have to ensure that you do a health check. So whether or not you actually eat right, you drink lots of water and you take care of yourself, you also have to ensure that you do a health check, either it's with a doctor or follow up with a consultant to ensure that you are actually in good health. So I would say to persons that they should drink a lot of water, that they should diabetes is not actually caused by sweets, so there's a lot of starchy foods as well. So I would say to them that they should have a balanced diet, that they should eat lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, and to watch what they eat. Not too much starchy foods, too much sweet things.
The health fair was followed by a walk for diabetes from the All Saints University through the streets of Roseau, then to the Botanical Gardens, where the group led by Father Franklin Coffey hula hooped for diabetes. In more news, the Association of Fire Chiefs, CAFC, on Monday, December 2nd, commenced a week of activities as part of the 11th Conference of Fire Officers Leadership Symposium. The conference brings together fire chief officers from across the Caribbean as they continue to discuss ways of improving the firefighters' abilities to respond and to protect our communities. The working session will also see the election of officers to coordinate the activities of the organization.
This conference, I am sure, will set the tone and will impact on our officers so that we may be able to produce more within reasonable time frames. Dominica offers really a truly unique experience. And this is so especially for the nature-loving visitor. You will find in this experience that our flora and fauna is second to none in the world. In our waterfalls, in our pristine rivers, and in case you haven't noticed, just over to my right, there is a crystal clear river flowing to the west. You will also experience Dominica's unique flavors in our cultural heritage, in our dance, in our language, in our architecture, in our cuisine, in our music, in our World Heritage Sites.
Chief Gregory Richards, president of the CAFC, said, "This conference is important to the CAFC as the junior fire officers get the opportunity to acquire the knowledge and skills to be successful in supervision, management, administrative and executive positions as they rise through the ranks and file of the fire services."
This year we're doing something very special. The JOLA graduates will all receive a very special coin that only JOLA graduates will ever have, This coin was put together by Chief Byron Kennedy and Chief Reggie Freeman. It's a very, very beautiful coin, and the JOLA graduates this year, for the first time in the history of JOLA, we will bestow on them this coin of brotherhood, and I believe this will go a long way in uniting the Caribbean Fire Services and for the future development of Caribbean fire chiefs. I also believe that when they meet at the Caribbean Fire Chiefs gathering, maybe 15 or 20 years from now, these officers will reminisce on their experience.
He added, the conference will provide expert advice, leadership research, joint disaster response planning, and up-to-date information on fire science and information. This will plot the course for the future development of the CAFC. Chief Fire Officer Mr. Reginald Freeman highlighted, the time to prepare the leaders of tomorrow is now.
For what we've done in JOLA, over 250 participants in the program, and after this week's delivery, we will well be over 300. What we're doing is transforming the Caribbean Fire Service. And to me, it is a great honor and privilege to be able to have CAF part of this process, to see two very distinct organizations with the same mission, focusing on what is important, and that is the men and women who wear the uniform in the Caribbean Fire Service. That, to me, ladies and gentlemen, deserves a round of applause. And so while we're on JOLA, JOLA has in itself transformed. When we first started the program, or the curriculum rather, we had a lot of good things mixed in one pot. I'm from Louisiana originally, so we call that gumbo. And so recognizing the need to change with times, with the demands of what's going on in the respective islands across the Caribbean.
He added, he's very excited about the new JOLA program. In other stories, the Caribbean HIV and AIDS Alliance, CHAA, in collaboration with the National HIV and AIDS Response Program, the Dominica Planned Parenthood Association, and volunteers from a range of other organizations embarked on a road trip dubbed Ride to Zero on Saturday 30th November. Major stops along the way included Grand Bay, Bagatelle, Fort Seja, Delis, La Plaine, Montjean, Rivière-Syrique, Cassibros, Carib Territory, and Bells, concluding in Roseau. According to Ms. Joanne George, Program Officer of CHAA, this was done in observance of World AIDS Day 2013.
And we're going to go along the south and southeastern villages of Dominica, stopping, doing HIV education, prevention education that is, and distribution of condoms, male-female condoms, oral dams. We hope to do some interaction with the people in the communities, invite them to get tested, and also to practice safer sex, reducing their risk for contracting HIV.
Officially, World AIDS Day is annually celebrated on December 1st. However, this activity was one of the numerous events forming part of the 2013 observance in Dominica. The theme for this year's observance is Getting to Zero through Social Justice and Equality.
Testing is a form of prevention, so one of the things that we're doing is encourage people to get tested. Right now, the National AIDS Response Program is upscaling their rapid testing, and by rapid testing I mean prior to the rapid testing, what we had was delayed testing, where you would go in, have your blood drawn, and get your results in about 2 weeks. Right now we have rapid testing where you go in and within an hour you have your test results. So we are encouraging people through our drive as well to get tested. We are focusing on the communities that we hardly reach, and that's why we are going through the south and southeastern villages and the eastern villages, because we do a lot around Roseau, Portsmouth, the villages along the west. But the more rural areas, we hardly do intervention. So that is one of the reasons we are doing this.
Ms. George says it is important that people are aware of the risk as they may engage in activity, not knowing they are placing themselves at risk of contracting HIV.
When one infection is a problem, that's why we're focusing on getting to zero. The Millennium Development Goals focuses on getting to zero new infections, zero discrimination, zero stigma by 2015. So one case is a problem. Now, people infected with HIV are living longer lives when they are placed on medication, but nobody wants to be sick and have to remember to take medication at all. So any infection that is prevented is an important one.
She is urging Dominicans to stick to one partner and practice safer sex. Persons who consume high amounts of alcohol and other drugs are being advised to reduce their intake, as this reduces their ability to make wise decisions. In more news, the family of Dominica's 5th president, Mr. Vernon Shaw, is now in mourning after he passed away at the Princess Margaret Hospital during the early hours on Monday, December 2nd, 2013. The father of four was married to still living Eudora Shaw. During his professional career, he served as President of Dominica, Cabinet Secretary, Permanent Secretary, and resident tutor at the University of the West Indies. He was educated at the Roseau Boys School, the Dominica Grammar School, and the Trinity College, University of Oxford in the UK, before beginning a career in the public service in 1948. His national awards include the Cicero Award of Honor he received in 1990 and the Dominica Award of Honor in 2001. May God be with his family and children during their time of grief. In other stories, the newly initiated National Employment Program of the Ministry of Employment, Trade, Industry and Diaspora Affairs was officially launched at the Windsor Park Sports Stadium on Monday, December 2nd, 2013. Honorable John Colin McIntyre, Minister for Trade, Industry and Diaspora Affairs, noted the government is keeping good on their promise for job creation and opportunities here in Dominica.
This government gets the facts first, then puts a plan in place and acts in the best interests of all our people. Many Dominicans have benefited from the efforts of this government through the Employment and Small Business Support Agency. The agency has assisted hundreds of enterprising entrepreneurs in realizing their dreams of operating their own businesses.
The National Employment Program launched today discussed several business opportunities including on-the-job training and mentorship program, graduate internships, and marketing assistant programs. Following the launching, a Trade and Employment Expo exhibiting businesses and their products was hosted. In an address to the crowd, Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, said he considers the two programs to be a perfect mix.
Social and economic development must go hand in hand, and today I consider the National Employment Program of Dominica the perfect mix. Through no fault of theirs, today's high school, college, and university graduates have inherited a global phenomenon of unemployment and underemployment. Many of the industrialized countries of the world are slowly emerging from what has clearly been the worst economic recession in the last century. But that does not take away from the mental anguish that millions of young people the world over have had to endure.
According to the Prime Minister, as adults and decision makers, we cannot wish our young people away because there is a recession and finances are limited. He further urged employers not to overlook the value of interns and pressed the young recruits to be mindful of their attitudes in the workplace, as it will affect their future stints. In 2008, the government of Dominica created the Small Business Support Unit to financially assist micro and small businesses. The mission of the agency has since then been extended to include development and implementation of programs for employment generation and job creation. In other stories, a meeting hosted by the United Workers' Party (UWP) was held at the Public Service Union (PSU) on Friday, November 29th to address and discuss the concerns of port workers, vendors, sportsmen and persons involved in the music and entertainment industries. Mr. Isaac Joseph, UWP candidate for Roseau Central, speaking on the topic vendors, marketing and employment in Roseau, says he would like to see Roseau as a model regional city in the Caribbean.
It would be a place which is very clean, a place where people want to live, a place where we respect the environment, and a place where we are environmentally conscious, but we are living in a way where we are happy and we are making a productive living.
Mr. Joseph says the plan is to firstly look into the challenges of the vendors and the opportunities to better their products. Making vendor space more attractive and strategically designing vendor locations around the city was one of the resolutions presented, aimed at enhancing and facilitating persons involved in businesses. Mr. Isaac also spoke briefly on the proposal of a major water park to be constructed in the Botanic Gardens in an attempt to generate revenue and jobs.
We'll be looking at in the gardens a major water park where, again, targeted to tourists and also locals, we'd have a water park where it can actually generate revenue and jobs. So it is really an export product, but also have a local market aspect. And the water park, we'd get proper designers in that specific area of engineering.
Former chairman of the Port Branch of the Waterfront and Allied Workers Union, WAU, Mr. Ellsworth Carter gave a brief description of some of the contests faced by port workers.
In 2001, the Port Authority moved to take over from the Dominica Stevedores Limited the services of longshoring and stevedoring operation on the docks. And they sought to enter into negotiations with the port branch, the WAU Port Branch, for a collective agreement. Now, their proposal had substantial provisions for the reduction of the pay of the longshoremen and stevedores.
When an agreement was not reached, the Port Authority unilaterally imposed a collective agreement on longshoremen and stevedores, drastically reducing their pay by 33%. Longshoremen and stevedores are paid based on the amount of cargo that they handle. Participants similarly raised concerns for available space around the central city. In more news, many employees of Mapping 2K4 Limited are still in shock after learning of the news that one of their senior officials was terminated. Mr. Periton Isidore, who was appointed general manager of the company in 2012, was laid off after receiving his termination letter from the board of directors on the afternoon of Friday, November 29, 2013. The termination letter did not state the reason for his termination. However, reports indicate that it may be linked to the company's new studio in Mont Daniel being disconnected by electricity supplier Domlec on that morning. Reports are that the company allegedly owes Domlec $1.7 million in electricity consumption. The studio is now operating on a backup generator. It is unclear whether the main office in Roseau will be disconnected or if any of their services to customers will be affected. When contacted, board member of the company, Mr. Parabellot, was in a meeting at the time, denied commenting on Mr. Isidore's dismissal, but did say that a press release will be soon sent out on the matter. In other stories, the Portsmouth Rotary Club recently held its charter night in Portsmouth at the Carbridge National Park. The invitation was to present charter membership certificates to Rotarians and accommodate their annual benefit raffle.
Since the very first donation in 1917 of $26.50, our foundation has received contributions that total more than $1 billion. In 2011, under what we call our future vision, new grant models were proposed and implemented by the Rotary Foundation, and they were designed to enable us, Rotarians around the world, to respond to the greatest needs of our communities. The Foundation identified specific causes to target and maximize local and global impact, whilst understanding that each community has its own unique needs and concerns.
The Rotary Club's 6 areas of focus include promoting peace, disease prevention and treatment, water and sanitation, serving mothers and children, education, literacy, economic and community development.
But very often the help that is needed is actually psychological help, counselling, support for the children particularly who suffer through conflict. Our programs educate young people on preventative measures to avoid conflict, and we deal with many negative social dynamics in communities, including anti-gang efforts and campaigns to overcome radical differences.
The Rotary Clubs in Dominica form part of District 7030, Southern Caribbean.
We provide access to safe drinking water. We focus on community development and management systems. We train people in food security plans that depend on adequate water, and we offer scholarships. There's a wonderful program in Holland, in the Netherlands, that deals with water management and water studies, and there are scholarships available to young people from Dominica, people from our district, water engineers to go. Rotary will pay for young people to go and study water management and then go into the world to help improve systems.
Honorable Ambrose George, Minister for Constituency Empowerment, says the government of Dominica's aim is in line with that of the Rotary Club.
The government supports, what do you want to call it, social clubs or NGOs, but we always look forward to working in collaboration with such groups. And I want to say to you tonight that, of course, this new induction and inauguration of the Portsmouth Rotary Club certainly will find its place within the government. And
in court news, a tourism service provider in Wharton Waven has found himself in hot water and now has to pay the state a small fine. Owner of Screws Sulphur Spa, Edison Screws Joseph, pleaded guilty to possession of 87 grams of cannabis when he appeared before Magistrate Ozzie Lewis on Friday, November 29, 2013. On 22nd November 2013, police officers executed a search warrant to search the defendant's premises for firearms. No firearm was found, but during the search, the defendant handed police a plastic bag with what appeared to be cannabis and was later tested positive for the illegal drug. He told police officers that the cannabis was for personal use and asked to be given a chance. A very remorseful Joseph was fined $200 to be paid by 31st December 2013, or in default, spent 12 days in prison. A charge of intent to supply, for which the defendant pleaded not guilty, was withdrawn. Meanwhile, Shannon Grell of Tarish Street and Juan Fountain of Point Michel were each fined $300 for possession of cannabis in separate incidents. The fines are to be paid by 31st January 2014, or in default, spend 20 days in prison. This has been the local segment of the news. Coming up next, regional highlights.